Welcome back, guys. On this video I'll be demonstrating how I hacked Donald West. Donald West is basically a person I've created to use as a target. We are targeting his work and bank credentials. This demonstration contains 4 applications which I have developed to demonstrate the hack. But before we jump on any of those applications, our target works at eCorp and uses EAB Bank as his personal bank, on which our exploitation applications will be based on. Going back to the applications, I have categorized applications to 2 parts, on which is the target side and hacker side, on which we are hackers on this case. We have a friend by the name of Katlego who has a physical access to the user's computer. So now it leaves us with the last part, on which is implementing the applications to attack the target. Follow along to understand the logic behind the hack. Welcome back, guys. So basically on this video we're going to be focusing on breaking our target using an extension and also an API. So on this side we do have our target's workplace side, on which this is the side that we are planning to get the credentials from, and then also we have the bank on which our target uses. So both of them, they do have email and password, on which that's what we're planning to steal, by the way. So the first thing we're going to be focusing on, I'm going to be taking you through the code of this application. All these applications are running on the local host, and then I'm going to be pretty much explaining what is happening behind the scenes. By the way, both of them are cookie based, meaning they authenticate using the cookie. So let's jump to the step. So I'm going to be opening the web. So within the work of the applications, as you can see, they are running. So let me go to the program. So as you can see, I've added authentication service, and then this is basically going to be using our cookie schema. Let's refresh that, and then the name of the cookie is work cookie. You will see when I log in, and then also if however our cookie has expired, it will just take us straight to the login page, and our cookie expires in 5 minutes. Now pretty much on this side. So now let's go into the login. So this is our login page, CS HTML code, and then now we have our model. So as you can see, everything has been hard coded behind, meaning this is what it takes for you to be able to log into the website. So we're going to be taking the value straight from this part and then sending them straight to this thing. For those who are not familiar with .NET web applications, consider this to be more of like a tutorial. So now we're going to be creating our claims. So we're going to be using the email that the user provided, and then add it to the claims, and then we build our identity here, and then we can create a cookie using the thing, and also providing the schema that we are using to authenticate. Nothing much. And then lastly we do have our logout, on which basically this is just about signing out the cookie. Now we're going to be moving to this one, on which this is about the bank, and then we do have pages. We have the index, almost the same as that one. We have the page model, on which there's nothing much going on the page model. And then we go to the account on the login side. This is the backend, same applies to that one. Difference is just the email. And then if we go to the program, almost the same thing. We are using cookies, and just different cookie names. So I feel like that's it for this one. Okay, by the way, I do have something. Seems like this thing is going to be pretty much long video. Okay, now we're going to be moving to which part? Okay, so this is basically what the client is going to be doing. Like they're going to be logging in onto their work site, and then they're going to also be logging in to their bank site. Let me demonstrate that. So let me go to the site. So they will provide their credentials, and then okay, let's do that. So Donald at eCorp.com, and then the password, and then they log into the site and then see some task, team tracking, and all that thing. So Then they log out, they do another thing, and which is bank side, on which they also provide the same thing. Donald at abbank.com, and then provide the password, on which is, and then this is what they're going to be going through. But we don't care much about what is happening inside the application, since our main aim is not to penetrate the website, but to steal the credentials on which they provide when they log in. Right? So to do that, I've come up with a plan on which the best way is to provide an extension. Like, it's so hard for people to go through the extension list and see which extensions have been installed on their Chrome or whatever client they're using. In this case, you can see I'm using Chrome, so I'm going to be demonstrating the whole thing using Chrome. So since we do understand what our target is going to be going through, and then what is our main aim, we're going to be jumping straight to our site, on which is things I've developed so far to make sure that we accomplish whatever we need to accomplish. And then, if you remember from the introduction, we said we do have somebody who has physical access to our target's machine, on which this person is Katlego, and then Katlego will be the one doing the part of injecting this thing over into the extensions, and then also installing the API behind. But before we move to that part, let's focus on the upcoming one, which is taking you through what is actually happening on the Chrome, how we build the Chrome extension. As I've said, everything's been built. I'm just going to be taking you through the code that I'm the one who wrote it, by the way. I didn't steal it anyway. So let's jump to the thing. Let me try to do like this. So this is what it takes basically to build an extension. So the name of the extension is called Monster Cookie. It uses version 0.1. Manifest version, I think it's required. I think it's supposed to be 3 when we use Chrome or something like that. And then here we provide the content scripts, which is a list, and then from then takes an object, on which the first object has a key of matches, on which in this case we say it's going to match every URL that the user goes through. What this thing means is that if we install this thing on our target machine, every time our target goes through any website, the JS within this file is going to be triggered, since we specified it here. So now let's go to this part. So remember something, we do have two parts here, right? We do have what? We do have work. So my typing is bad. So we have work, and then we also have what? Our bank down there. So these are the two URLs that we are targeting. And then here comes the if condition. We don't want to trigger this thing everywhere. We don't want to check the password or the email that the user has provided on every website. We only targeting for 2 sites. So on this thing, we created a condition to check if whatever URL the user said has been included within the target list or array. And then from there, we do some mapping here, on which we try to get the elements within the DOM. And then from then we add some listener to the button, that is login button. And then from there we do our API URL, on which this is where we're going to be sending our data. So, and then we do have an object. So once this button has been clicked, we're going to try to get the information that has been provided here, and then create an object, and then from there create a post, and then send this thing. So basically that thing, there is nothing much on that one. So the port might be changing. I'm gonna have to check if we're gonna be using port 5000 when you run our API or not. But otherwise, let's jump straight to our API now. So I think I have my API. Okay, I think so. I have it all running already. Also, okay, so I have API running already. Let me just. Oh, our API runs at 5190. So probably need to change something. actually we have to change this. It says 5,590. Perfect. So now let's load this way. So as you can see, we do have only one endpoint here, on which is for adding the credential to the DB. So this is the model, username, password, and the URL that you add. And then if you can see the schema, the same as this thing. So also nothing much exciting about this thing. Let's go to the API code now. So in this case, I've just put the infrastructure together just to make it one application. Like, I didn't separate anything. For those who have watched my video about onion architecture, probably they might be like, why didn't you apply this thing? Probably because I do believe it's because the project is way too small for me to even consider making or applying the onion architecture on this thing. So we do have one controller on which is our credential, on which it does have we do have this is the same model that we're gonna be using, right? It's called user, and then we have our endpoint on which is add, and then the name of the endpoint is called add password, and then we're gonna be taking this object from the body of the page, and then we check if the model is valid, meaning everything's been provided, and then if that's the case, we're gonna be creating our object. Wait a minute. So we create our Mongo repository create async, meaning we're gonna be creating a new object within the Mongo repository, and then providing this object, and then we're gonna return true. Basically, yeah. In this case, it seems like everything returns true. Actually, I feel like I should have done something like this. And wait. So okay, so basically if the model so if the model is not valid, we return false. So there was just a little bit of misunderstanding. Okay, so now let's try to move on to other parts. We do have our entity on which is called credential, on which there's an ID of type JSON. Type is a JSON type. Basically it will be auto generated. So for those who are doing what is this thing, who knows about database, this is basically creating something called a surrogate key. Basically, yeah, it will always be generated. And then we do have our username, password, and the URL. Pretty simple stuff. And then let's go to the infrastructure. This is our Mongo repository on which I've added a lot of stuff, but basically what we need is just this one for creating, on which it is this one. Everything here is quite pointless because we do not use other operations. So yeah, basically that's what's happening. Let's go back to this thing. So if you don't know anything about dependency injection, you should go back to my video about dependency injection. So this is what we actually did here. We injected our Mongo repository to be able to, in order for us to use it on our controller. As you can see, we have injected it on our constructor. And then if we go back, we also mapped okay, by the way, we do have an object called DB settings. Let's go to this thing, one which just provides the connection string, database name, and then collection name. And then it's going to be providing them to this object, so that when we call this object, or when we try to inject this object to whatever class that we needed, it gets the values that we need. So you might question, where do these values come from? So these values are being coded within the app settings.json, so on which, as you can see, this thing is the same name as the model that we have created, on which it provides information regarding our things. So this is our MongoDB connection string, the name of the database, and then also the collection name, probably the table. Yeah, it's not generic, so it's pretty simple. And then okay, we did here import our DLLs. If you didn't watch my previous video about creating your first malware or something like that, you should check it out. I've put some bit of an explanation of what's happening here. And then what is the other thing that I'm missing here? I feel like that's pretty much about this thing. Right? Okay, so now let me take you through. I'm gonna be showing you what's happening on my Mongo. Okay, so what's happening is that we do have our database called Monster, on which this corresponds to wait a minute, where's my to this thing, on which is Monster, and then we have a collection name which is Credential, on which it goes with this one. As you can see, our credential at this one is empty, but if we can try to put some dummy thing here. So let's try to read on this thing, and then we're going to be sending our request using the Swagger. Let's wait for it to finish. We're just going to be creating some simple stuff. I don't know why it's taking so long to. Okay, yeah, it's doing the things. Okay, gonna be navigating to Swagger. So, if you remember, this thing is empty. Let me try to refresh. As you can see, the credential is empty. So now let's try to make our post to this API. If however you'd like me to make a video in future about how to implement an API, like deep understanding on how .NET API really works, I would really love to do so. So now let's try to send some data. So the name of the username is gonna be something like, okay, let's say YouTube, and then what is our password is be like hack me, and then our URL will be http I don't know what it will call, something like this, nothing serious. So now we can execute this thing and send our data. Let's send. So as you can see, the response is 200, meaning it was successful. And then this is the information that was used. Yeah. So this is an example of a cal. If you have checked, there was this video that I've posted previously about how to hacking something like hacking a website on which it restricts people from your region, something like that, on which we had to do something like this, on which we were manipulating the head that has been sent to the server or something like that. It was pretty exciting. It was interesting basically. Then we move. Okay, so let's go to the Mongo thing, refresh. So as you can see, it has created our object, which is our ID, and then this is the information that we've provided. All right, perfect. So now everything is working. Our API is fully working. It's time for now to test our extension to see if however it will be able to do what it will be able to trigger when we go through our target website. So let's go to where's that thing? Okay, so this is it. So let's remember, this is our URLs that we are targeting, right? Meaning if a user goes through this thing, this code should be triggered. So we're gonna try to do some debugging a bit. So this is our site for work. Let's do some inspection and some source. Where's that thing? We have a monster. Okay, let me try to close this thing. I have a lot of stuff open here. I only need this thing. So as you can see, this is basically the same code that we wrote there. Okay, by the way, let me try it. So I have already installed the extension on my Chrome. Let me try to do it again so that you see the process of doing that thing. All you have to do If you have not enabled your developer mode, you just have to enable it so that you get these options. Then you load unpacked, then you go navigate straight to where your thing is, and then you select this, and then it gets added. If you were to check the details of this thing, scroll down, loaded from, you see this is the URL, I mean the location within my machine. Basically this is the same location as this. Okay, now let's go back. So our master cookie is already running, right? I don't know why I called it master cookie. Should have called it password hunt or something like that. Okay, anyway, actually let me do that thing. Makes me weird. Let's run with this thing. I'm just gonna call it password hunt. But when you okay, I'm not so sure if I make disclaimers, but all the time these videos are for educational purposes, nothing else. Do not use this thing without getting permission to penetrate test somebody or anyone. So okay, so let's name this thing properly. So instead of saying monster cookie, can we just password hunt, something like that. So password. Okay, now let's come here. Let's do the same process. Password hunt. This is way much better. Okay, now let's get to Spawn. So if we were to, this is basically the same code, right? So I'm gonna be putting my breakpoint here to check if or ever this thing is gonna be triggered. Let's refresh. So as you can see, this has been triggered. So now let's step in. Okay, as you can see now, since for the fact that this URL is being included within this one, on which is this one, then we're gonna get inside this thing, and then add this listener, on which every time when we click this thing, we're gonna do some crazy stuff, on which we're gonna be sending to this part. Alright. So now let's keep this thing. Let's remove our breakpoint. So now let's sign in. So let's provide wrong information at this point. So let's just say test at test.com, then password is test. Let's log in. Yeah, so now let's go to our thing, try to see if or ever. So as you can see, this is the information that has been posted. Now let's log in for real so that we get the real credentials, right? So let's, so what's this person? So it's Donald. Then we add ecorp.com. So now we managed to log in, and now we log out. So basically, as I've said, it's so rare for a user to normally go and check the extensions. That's why I've decided to use this technique. It's rare. And then you can even name your extension to be something related to Chrome. You can just, or Microsoft, something that would make your target not even be suspicious that much. So if we go to Mongo and refresh this, as you can see, we do have our username and then the password, on which is hackme, and then the URL, on which this is the same URL that we were using to log in. So now we managed to find our target's web credentials. Now we go to the back. So let's inspect again, just for demonstration. So our source, I'm gonna try to put a breakpoint here. Let's refresh. Breakpoint being hit. Step. Can see that everything was perfectly fine as step 1. So now we're going to be providing the real credentials, which is Donald, abbank.com, and then password is hackme. So they log in, log out, do whatever they do in there, and then log out. And then for us, we have what we want, on which is this information, right? Great. So on this video, I was just trying to demonstrate what can actually happen when you combine an extension and then probably create an API on which you don't always listen or waiting for your extension to send some data. right? But you might be questioning something. So here I do have like some pure code, right? I mean, let me go to my API. This is pure code. This is like a pure web API application. How are we gonna take it to the user side, right? So what we're gonna do is we have to publish the same. This is the same information that I've said on this. I'm gonna be doing the same technique that I've used when I was creating the first module using the console application. I'm gonna be doing the same commands that I was writing on my terminal, and then yeah. So let's do that again. So let's minimize these things. So yeah, let's stop everything for now. So we are within this directory, right? Our extension is good. We just have to take the copy, the folder, and then just add our extension to our target web browser, and then that's it. The Chrome is not that difficult. Now we have to make sure that this API gets hidden within our target's machine, and then like our database, we can make a use. As you can see in this case, we're using our local Mongo Compass. We can use our online one, in which we're gonna have to just change something simple, on which is this one. Instead of using the local one, we're gonna have to provide the one that is being hosted somewhere. Then that's when we're gonna be able to get information. Like we just have to provide install extension on the Chrome or whatever web browser our target is using, and then also install this API that we created here. So now let's publish the website so that we can be able to install it and run it on our target's machine. Okay, so I'm going to be creating a simple folder called out or exe. So this is basically where we're gonna put in our how do I put this thing? Our exe application, meaning an executable application, API application. So we're gonna make sure that it contains all the necessary DLLs or all the necessary namespaces that they are needed in order for this thing to run, instead of depending on our target machine to have .NET installed to be able to run this thing. On which the bad side about it is that it's going to make the size of the application huge. But anyway, let's get this thing done. So first thing we're going to do is that we're going to say .NET, and then we're going to publish this thing, right? Okay, first of all, let me create a directory. So the directory that we're going to be creating is going to be called out. So as you can see, we do have it here. So now we're going to say .NET. We're going to be publishing this thing, and then we're going to say SRC. If you don't understand what this thing means, go check out the previous video about creating your malware. And then from there, this is something I've already talked about. So for those who don't understand, you're just gonna have to go back and check what's happening. So now let's press enter and see what's happening. So let's check our out folder. It should be populated with a lot of DLLs and exe application. Let's give it a sec. Things might not work well on this thing because of the change of our port. Like when you run this thing on our machine, it might change the port. So, and then there's something that I think I forgot to change also. I'm gonna have to comment on this thing. Let's try to see what's happening. So if I were to open this thing in File Explorer, you should be able to see something. Okay, so yeah, this is our Explorer, this is our out folder, and then where's our application? So we have our Monster API here. So if we double click this thing, bring it here, as you can see, it goes off because we haven't commented out nothing. So that means I'm gonna have to delete this thing and then start again, make some changes so that we also see which port is going to be running on. Okay, this thing is running background, so let's try to open our task manager and see what's happening. So this is the Monster API. Let's stop this application, go back here, try it again. Okay, so our thing is empty. So now let's go to our API. So we've commented out this thing. We should be able to see which port this thing is running on. So now let's do the same thing. Okay, so it's done now. Let's go back to this thing. Monster API, let's run it. Bring it over the side. Let's see what's happening. Give it a sec. So now we can see that this thing is basically running on port 5000. I tried to run this thing only on this machine. I'm not so sure if I ever were to take it to another machine, it will use the same port 5000 or not. But every time if you remember when I was doing this thing, the port on the extension, it was 5000, and then we changed it to the one that it was using when I was running it straight as an application, and now we have to revert back to this thing. So we need to go back to this thing and then change it to 5000. Right, save this thing, and then that's it. So let's try to go to the extensions. Let's refresh this. Let's refresh the pages. So let's close this thing, delete it. Now we have, okay, let's go to the API again. Now let's build it, our final build for publishing the final thing now. Oh, I made a mistake. Let me try to stop this thing. Is there something here? Okay, great, I forgot to uncomment this thing. Okay, let's do it. Okay, things are being populated in here. That's great. So now this is what we need. So we have a Monster API on which when it runs, it's gonna go off. Right? It's just gonna disappear and run at the background. And then from then it's gonna be listening to whatever is gonna be sending data. Remember something, our extension knows now where to send our data. Alright? So I'm gonna run this thing and then try to act like I'm just a client now, or our target, basically, and see what change. Like, would it have much of an effect? Would you even feel that you've been hacked? I doubt. So now let's run this thing, bring it over here. Let's wait for it to close. So now it went away. Perfect. And then now we're gonna be opening our website. So this now will be what the user normally sees. So first of all, probably in the morning you go to work, you need to log into your machine. So you're gonna be providing things. I'm telling you, it's so rare to find a person who goes to their extension or check up their extensions every time. And trust me, you can name your extension almost the same as the ones. Like for example, let me go to my extensions. You can create something like this, call it Adobe Acrobat, just change something at the end, and then also use the same thing. Like they wouldn't, bro. There's a there's low chance of them realizing this thing. So as I will always say, this is not to encourage any malicious activities or to try to hack people without getting a permission. So basically this is what you'll be facing, right? And then also regarding the application that's on it, let's try to see something also. Let me expand this thing. So as you can see, this is the Monster API, right? I could have changed it to anything that is related to Microsoft or anything that will make, even if you were to open your task manager, it will be so difficult for you to even realize that this is some shady thing. Like for example, call it Microsoft Network real time, change something at the last. You understand? Windows what, so that the user doesn't even realize that this is something that is not supposed to be here. Does it make sense? So let's go back to this thing. So now let's refresh both of this thing. So now the user or target will be logging to their work, and then they will provide the things. .w add equal nice, and then provide their passwords. Now they log in. Nothing is shady at this point. You can't even suspect that you are being watched. Your information that you enter is being sent somewhere. You wouldn't believe it. Then okay, no problem. So you're done. You feel like, oh, you're tired. Then you go back to work. You go back home. You log out. Then you close it. Then you go to your bank. Then you'll be like, you know what? I want to check my balance. I want to do some transactions. No problem. Then you do your Donald and AP bank, and then some passwords. You can check your balance. Everything has been displayed. No problem. You log out. Your life is good at this point. Nothing is wrong. This is what mostly happens to most of the people in organizations. So what is happening is that they are being hacked, or like they're being hacked, but they can't notice it. It's like they don't have a proof of it. They don't know yet until they do some diggings. And then I've realized something, like if we look at this thing, our API, it is showing some files on which it's not supposed to. Sometimes it doesn't show. If you remember on the Monster, the console application that I created, it wasn't showing this thing. I'm not so sure what's up with it. I'm gonna try to do that. But anyway, let's go check our Atlas, our Compass there. So as you can see, this is information that has been provided just now. This is amazing, right? So as you can see, the first thing they do, they log to work, and then now they did what? To the bank. This is exciting. This can be an online DB on which you can access anytime. Then you can say, oh, today this person is logged in using these credentials. And then sometimes you don't have to get password for everything. People hardly change their password or use different passwords. So if I cracked one for one side, there's a chance you used it somewhere else. Meaning I can compromise other accounts that you have out there. So I want to try to check up something. I'm gonna try to stop this thing. I'm gonna try to delete all these things. I'm gonna try to see if it's still working. So now this thing is empty. Just for verification purposes, let's see something. What is that Monster thing? Let's see. Task. Is it not running? Did I stop it? I can't find it here. No, it's not here. Now let's see. Let's try to run another one. Let's see. Let's open. Okay, there it is again. I don't know why it creates this thing. Okay, I stopped it. Let me see. It opens two things: a console window and then. Okay, I don't know why it does this thing. Because basically, this is kind of exposes some information about this thing. But anyway, if it was like this, if it's properly named, like, the user might not even suspect a lot of things. Yeah, so basically that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next upcoming videos. Cheers.